I don't know about you guys, but I feel like Capcom has been pretty quiet on Resident Evil as of late. So in the meantime, let's talk about another possibly but not quite likely candidate for the next remake. I chose Zero specifically because I feel like this game had the most potential, but simply felt a little bit misguided and didn't know quite how to fit to the first game's storyline. But if given the remake treatment, not only could they flesh out the big bumps in the story, but also resolve the issues that players have with it. And that's exactly what we're doing. We'll be going through the entire game and identify which aspects the remake can improve or even remove altogether. Before we continue, as always, I want to clarify that these are just my opinions, and nothing in this video should be taken seriously. I am also open to others' opinions, so if you have any suggestions for what you would like to see in the remake, please let me know. Just remember to be nice. Now, without further ado...
Resident Evil Zero.
Oh, and I should also mention, there's spoilers. The game begins by introducing the main enemies we'll be facing, the leeches, as they attack a bunch of civilians in a train. Alongside this is a shot of a mysterious man who is the game's main villain, Dr. James Marcus, one of the original founders of Umbrella. One slight change I want for this part is to have the villain's identity more hidden. It's kinda dumb to have this mysterious character introduced, only to have him in every cinematic cutscene laughing like a high school drama kid. Hell, after the train section, he just kinda sorta reveals his true identity anyway. After that, we are then introduced to Rebecca Chambers, and a bunch of other STARS members, but they don't really matter to the story, investigating the murders happening in the woods. I also want this part to be playable. Having you roam through the woods looking for clues and have it lead up to the train, I think that would be a good idea. This next one goes without saying, but it'd be great if they added back the item boxes. Zero's item management system of leaving things on the floor was a cool idea back then, but now it sort of seems like an impulsive attempt to prolong the game's length. Not only that, but when it comes to key items, it can be a downright inconvenience. Imagine this, before exploring a new area, you decide to drop a few items to free up some space in your inventory, say for example, the hookshot. And once you finally make it to the new area, there's a giant hole in the ceiling, which means you can't proceed any further because the only item that can grapple you up there is all the way back in the mansion! And if they can't do that, at least give us more inventory space because this style of backtracking is just draining, man. The train is a fun little section that was unique from any other Resident Evil location at the time. So expanding this portion in the remake would be perfect. I could see them adding new rooms like a luggage area or a pool room, but I would also like to see them enhance the atmosphere by making the train shake. Having it rock back and forth occasionally makes it harder to aim accurately, so when you're fighting a group of zombies, you better hope the tracks don't curve. Bro, imagine when you have to go on top of the train and then it starts rocking. That shit would be horrifying. And if they actually develop this into the game, they should also add a QTE and a game over screen for falling off the train. Billy Cohen, a former US Marine / death row convict, serves as our secondary protagonist, and is, in my opinion, a highly underrated character.
Oh, I see. You're with STARS.
This is the only game that we ever see Billy in, and not only did he never come back, he is also never referenced in the rest of the series, and we never found out what happened to him. I understand that they wanted to leave it ambiguous, but at the very least, could they give us a little nod to Billy's whereabouts in the remake? As for his design, I'd suggest starting him off in a marine jacket, and then halfway through the game he loses it, and just rocks the wife beater to show off his arm tattoo, you know what I'm saying? Fuck it, add a scar on his other arm, as a reference to his backstory. That'd be cool as shit. By this point of the game, you're introduced to the main focus of the gameplay, controlling two characters simultaneously. This concept is sort of a mixed bag for me. It's great having a CPU sidekick that can actually fight back, and controlling the partner with the right stick is actually not as difficult as you think. However, having a partner can also drain your resources, and switching between the two characters takes some time, which becomes tedious since you'll be constantly switching in this game. For the remake, I'm confident that they'll improve the CPU's AI, but I also want them to simplify the partner's controls. I don't want to have to go through my inventory menu to make my partner idle or attack. There should just be a button for that. And if you get grabbed, have your partner kick the zombie off you. Just some combat like in RE5 and 6. Speaking of which, there's another feature from those games that need to be included in this remake, and that is co-op. It'd be great if they actually made the game co-op compatible. I mean, the whole structure of the game is perfect for 2 players. Being able to split up and look for clues, or fight a horde of monsters in a group, and if they decide to make it online multiplayer, you can communicate via walkie-talkies. There's so much you can do that it'd be an absolute wasted opportunity if they don't decide to add in co-op. Now, let's talk about the leeches. Since they play a main role in the story, it makes sense to make them the main enemy. Aside from, the zombies, I hope they do more with these guys in the remake and implement them in unique ways. One idea I have is to create certain rooms infested with leeches. Much like poison traps or the remains of Chernobyl, they will slowly kill you if you stay in there for too long. If they do this, I'd also want to see them implement a hazmat suit that you can wear in order to enter these rooms, and you need to destroy a bunch of nests or leechmen in these rooms using either fire rounds or molotovs. That would be so cool! I'm probably gonna get some hate from this take, but what if they developed the leechmen to instantly kill you? You're probably saying, "Dude, are you stupid? These guys are already bullshit overpowered. It's like you're adding fuel to a fire." Well, first of all, fire hurts, leechmen, dumbass. And 2, hear me out. Making them an instant death enemy would mean that the developers would have to tone down their difficulty. Otherwise, it'd be impossible. Maybe they'll make them even more vulnerable to fire, so instead of using 3 Molotovs, you can use 1 just to expose their weak point, and then you can load them up with bullets. I don't know, what do you think of this idea? Here we have our first boss, the giant Scorpio. And there's not really much to say. It's a decent fight for a first encounter. Much like the giant spider boss from the first game, there's not really that much to change design-wise. I mean, there's a scorpion, it's already horrifying enough. But it'd be interesting if it was based off a species of scorpion. Let's say an emperor scorpion. Just give it some big, sharp claws, and a stinger that's like big and red and sharp. You could even make the stinger a secret attack that could instant kill you. That'd be sick! Now we've reached the final portion of the train, where you have to stop the train from crashing, which sounds crazy enough, but what if they cranked up the intensity up a few notches? Remember when I mentioned the train rocking? Have that increase and become more chaotic with each passing minute. Since it's meant to be suspenseful, have the players and zombies trip and fall and struggle to maintain their balance. If you're going to make preventing a train derailment feel more intense, then this is a pretty solid way to do it, in my opinion. Now we've arrived at the main area that you'll be in for about 45% of the game. And this is where most of the exposition happens when we meet Albert Wesker and William Birkin. Yeah, let's talk about that. William Birkin does not belong in this game. It feels like the dialogue wasn't written for him. Birkin was great in the second game because he was a paranoid, broken character who was deeply invested in his work. Having Birkin side by side with Wesker just doesn't feel right, you know? It doesn't add much to his story and is unfitting for his character. So in short, get Birkin out of here. Since you spend a majority of your time here, I want the remake to give this place a unique theme. This place kind of reminds me of an old-fashioned bank that your parents would used to take you when you were young, and you'd tell your mom, "Mom, I don't want to go to your bank, it's boring,"
¿A quién estás diciendo charapu? ¿A mí me estás diciendo charapu?
or something like that. The main point is, make it feel like a legitimate training facility, and not just a watered-down version of the first game's mansion. Include an exercise room, or a rehabilitation room, or whatever the fuck a training facility has. Now that we're encountering more enemies, the one main issue that I have with RE0 is that it recycles old enemies and assets. A lot. Don't get me wrong, reusing assets isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's effective and helps game developers save time and storage by utilizing existing resources. However, when it comes to enemies, it feels kinda strange since there's already equivalents in this game. Plague crawlers are essentially counterparts to the giant spiders, and the eliminators are counterparts to the hunters, so why not have these guys take their place? I mean, you give the eliminators this creepy introduction, but by the second half of the game, since this is a prequel to the first game, shouldn't the spotlight be mainly on the failed experiments like these guys? After exploring a bit, you'll be solving puzzles and collecting these statue pieces, which are needed to unlock the basement of the facility. Personally, I think it'd be better if the statues were divided into 3 pieces, the body and the 2 wings. This would give people more incentive to continue exploring the mansion. Another puzzle I'd like to see more of is this giant chess puzzle. Aesthetically, it's cool moving the chess pieces around to match the small chessboard. I just wish they could do a little bit more with it. How about adding a hidden treasure, where you have to discover a secret chessboard that's all the way at the end of the game. Then you could return and match those pieces, and you unlock a new weapon upgrade or something. That'd be pretty neat. The plague crawlers were another failed experiment. In fact, it was one of the first BOWs to be created. Yeah, before the virus was used on humans, they genetically modified multiple insects, leading to the creation of these creatures. This is one reason I want these guys to get more attention. Their origin is so interesting, and you can make these guys genuinely creepy if you really try. Regarding their design, base it on a specific insect, such as a prairie mantis. Make it slightly larger with antlers, armored shells, and raptorial claws. Oh, and also have it stand up. I don't know why, but a bug-like monster that stands upright and is now the same height as you, that is just plain terrifying. The Centurion, or as people call it, the giant centipede, or as I call it, a hell no! For this guy, I would want him to look more like a realistic centipede, and that means giving him a gross, furry design with extra antennas and legs, and maybe change its color scheme to give it like a brownish red or orange. Hey, you know what? Just for fun, let's have its little leggies hurt you. So the closer you are, the more likely you'll get hit. Another awful idea I thought of would be to have Rebecca die if you accidentally shoot her. I don't know, it just seems like a very Resident Evil thing to do.
Oh, no.
After completing the scale puzzle, you unlock the basement, which is surprisingly not that exciting. I mean, the basement area has plenty of cool things to look at. The animal puzzle is pretty clever, the torture room is kind of creepy and gross, and that's about it really. So I'm hoping they add a bit more to this area. Maybe have the basement be a huge containment compound where all the forgotten failed BOWs are locked up. Until they break out, of course, and murder you. The Eliminators are a primate-based BOW, and are among the toughest enemies to fight. And that is saying a lot when it comes to this game. Fighting one monkey is manageable, but when faced with a whole group of them, and without any good weapons, you're screwed! So I'm hoping they can stick around for the rest of the remake. Now their design. Hear me out. What if they designed them to be hairless primates? This way, we could physically see their deterioration and zombification. And I don't know about you guys, maybe it's just me, but I think hairless chimps are terrifying. I mean, look at this. Look at it. It's scary knowing that these guys are capable of unaliving humans, but to see how ripped they are? If you see these guys in the wild, pray to God that they make it quick. But you know they ain't going to. After Billy saves Rebecca from a falling death, we then go into Billy's backstory, which I'll quickly explain here. Lieutenant Billy and his group of Marines were sent to a remote part of Africa to track down a guerrilla hideout. However, it turned out that there was no guerrilla hideout and his team was ordered to execute an innocent village, which Billy did not approve of. He was then framed for the murders by his platoon, and yada yada yada, that's how we got here. There, did that sum it up for you? For this one, I kinda hope that this backstory is semi-playable, having you stroll through the jungle until you reach the village. Not only that, but I want there to be some sort of twist behind his backstory that connects to future games. Get ready for this is big brain. For example, what if someone from Umbrella had something to do with it? What if a higher up at Umbrella directed them to the village and ordered them to attack, possibly for a research on a certain virus? Since this backstory takes place in Africa, maybe include a small tiny reference to RE5, please? Congratulations, we've now made it to the halfway point, and here's your prize. I mean, thematically, this fight is amazing. Fighting a giant bat inside this huge church sounds awesome. Replace the music with an epic medieval score with a pipe organ playing in the background, and you got yourself a perfect boss right here. For its design, I would just want to add bigger teeth and bulging red veins throughout its wings. Something simple, you know? It's a giant bat, what else do you really want? The laboratory is interesting to say. It's just that it should have lasted a bit longer than it did. There isn't much to say here, just add more rooms and include additional key items like treasures or even Resident Evil lore to discover. And since the leeches were created in the lab, it wouldn't be a bad idea to make some parts of the lab leech infested like I said earlier. And just because I'm a sick maniac, the lab would be perfect to introduce a new enemy, maybe even an unused enemy. Here's another concept that they can implement more with.
I think we should split up. What are we looking for? Clues!
Having the players split up more often forces them to rely solely on themselves and dealing with the bullshit enemies like leechmen. Also, transferring items through a dumbwaiter is excellent. This only happens 2 times in the game, in the first half of the train and here in the lab. I hope that the Zero Remake can introduce an interesting twist into this concept and create clever puzzles this way. The Proto-Tyrant is one of the most well-known bosses in the game. No surprise there, since every boss so far has been just a bunch of creepy crawlies and bats. The concept of the prototype is pretty cool, and the fight ain't too shabby. The only thing that might need a little adjusting is the design. It is said in the game that the T-001 model was a failed experiment and far inferior to the future Tyrants. What I would do is add extra detail to its defects. Give it only one arm and make that arm look like a giant shattered bone. Maybe some metal rods attached to his back that exposes its spine. And finally, make its face look a bit more horrific, especially around the left eye area. Before we head to the final area, there is one more thing I like to mention. Shortcuts. For the remake, I would want to keep the maps connected, or better yet, add more shortcuts to old spots. Let's be honest, no one likes backtracking, especially when there's no shortcuts available. No one likes taking the longer route just for a few medicinal plants. So if they could add a few more shortcuts to save us some time, that would be fantastic. Here we are, boys. We've made it to the culmination, treatment plant zone. And honestly, I have to say, for a final area, okay. Aside from the poll room, there aren't that many memorable areas in this. Which kinda sucks because the concept sounds awesome. A huge factory with dams and creatures hidden in the water. Sounds great. Another issue is that it doesn't last long before you reach the final boss. So I would love for them to expand this area, add more rooms, add more puzzles, something. One idea that I thought of would be to make the factory be like a huge maze, and the paths are controlled by the dams. And you can make a puzzle out of this. Create a complete puzzle around adjusting the dams. For instance, imagine there's two bridges, and one of them is controlling the water flow. If the upper bridge is raised, crossing the lower bridge becomes impossible. I swear, if they can actually implement a concept like this, but on a larger scale, I'll be astonished. The last new enemies that you'll encounter are these bulbous amphibians. The lurkers are among the most dangerous monsters in the game. So dangerous, in fact, that they only show up here, and anytime they do show up, it's completely RNG. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if someone managed to beat this game without ever seeing a giant toad. For the remake, I would like them to keep the toads and have their spawn randomly. However, I prefer their spawn rate to be a little bit higher, or have it based on difficulty. Say that you're playing on normal difficulty, you would most likely see like 2 or 3 toads. But if you're playing on hardcore difficulty, oh boy, you better be ready to encounter every toad that you run by any body of water. There's not much to change design-wise, but it would be kinda creepy if the toads were covered in leeches, since it kinda does make sense nature-wise, and this game is about the leeches. For this design though, I would especially have them cover up where their eyes would be, just to give off the illusion of multiple eyes. This next one I wanted to talk about earlier, but since we're here, I might as well bring it up. Chemistry. These canisters of different chemicals play a small role in solving key puzzles by mixing chemicals to make stripping agent or battery fluid. The other thing they can do is, in case you get poisoned, the green chemical can come in handy. But all in all, that's really about it for the chemicals. Hopefully the remake will give these chemicals a bigger role. Maybe you could use them to find collectibles or secret rooms in the area. Now, we've reached the final boss. Here it's quote-unquote revealed that the mystery man was James Marcus. For this one, I would like to see a little more development in Marcus's character. For example, include a scene where Dr. Marcus has a falling out with infamous Umbrella founder, Oswald E. Spencer. This can offer an explanation to why he's so devoted to experimenting with a progenitor virus, and how his resentment for Spencer drives him to keep the research all to himself, which would eventually lead to his death. We'll just have to wait and see what the remake will do, but as for now, let's just continue with the boss fight. The Queen Leech ranks among the best Resident Evil bosses. It's strong, fast, it looks badass, and has a great backstory as Dr. Marcus's final experiment before he was assassinated. And after absorbing the memories of its creator, the Queen Leech is reincarnated as Marcus, who vowed to take vengeance against Umbrella. As for its design, the only thing I would say is to give the Queen Leech a vertical mouth filled with razor-sharp teeth that extends down to its chest area. Also, just my opinion, but I think it'd be hella cool if it crawled on all fours. Just imagine this thing running at you on all fours, climbing on walls and ceilings and shit. It'd be perfect. We've pretty much made it to the end, so let's wrap this video up by talking about some extra shit. Let's start by saying, what if they make a side story mode that covers what happened to Billy Cohen afterwards? Maybe they'll have him go through the Arklay Forest, fighting zombie dogs at campgrounds, rest stops, and other landmarks, until he finally makes it out of the forest, and the story would just conclude with him catching a bus and saying goodbye forever. As I mentioned before, this was Billy's last appearance in the series, which sucks because I actually really like him. I'm just hoping they do my boy justice and create more content with him, for Christ's sakes. Leech Hunter is a fun minigame mode that has plenty of potential if remade. The game is a huge collectathon. You run around finding as many trinkets as possible and survive in a facility full of zombies and monsters. It's unique enough from other Resident Evil side modes like Mercenaries or Raid mode. All that would really need to be done is adding more maps, like the train or the treatment plant. I don't think it would be that hard to implement. This mode also features an award system that gives you cool items like new weapons or infinite ammo, which is great. However, instead of having it based on how many you collected, have the leeches you collect serve as currency that you could spend in a extra content shop, similar to the previous remakes. I believe that would be a lot more interesting. Lastly, let's talk about the unused content. And I have to say, they have pretty good potential for the remake. First up is the Spider-Man concept. Jeez, imagine this guy in the Spider-Verse. Basically, these creatures were giant spiders that were embedded into zombie hosts. The spider would take control of the body, and people theorized that the zombie would have been used as a shield, and you would have to run from behind to kill it. I could definitely see Capcom implement this in some way, and perhaps instead of spiders, the plague crawlers could take control of the dead hosts. I'd also say that the training facility basement would be a perfect setting for these guys. The Dolly is an interesting fellow, mainly because of how little info I could find about this thing. The only information I could scavenge was that they are similar to plague crawlers, as they were both created through genetic recombination, but lack intelligence. Okay, pause. While I was working on the script for this video, I had a moment of realization on how the design of this thing reminded me of Salvador Dali paintings. I can't be the only one who thinks this, right? Any art bros out there, please confirm with me on this. Maybe that's why it's called Dali. I'm sorry, I'll shut up now. I believe this concept, or at least the design of this guy, could work in some way. Personally, from the looks of this thing, he looks way more like a mini-boss. The design also appears quite alien, so I'd say that the laboratory would be an ideal location. Likely found inside the test tube room, it would then break out and then stalk you throughout the rest of the laboratory. You could do so many interesting things with this, but we'll just have to wait and see what the developers decide to do. And that is the end of my wishlist for the Resident Evil Zero Remake. Yeah, Capcom is really making us wait, huh? Seriously, you guys, a surprise announcement would be nice. Anyways, what do you guys think of this video? Is there an idea that I missed? Leave your suggestions and comments below, and I'll make sure to check them out. If you like this video, please give it a huge thumbs up. And if you want, why not subscribe as well? I would really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.